to read in 2 Chronicles chapter 12 in the King James Version. And it came to pass, when Rehoboam had established the kingdom and had strengthened himself, he forsook the law of the Lord and all Israel with him. And it came to pass that in the 5th year of King Rehoboam, Shishak, king of Egypt, came up against Jerusalem, because they had transgressed against the Lord, with 1,200 chariots and 70,000 horsemen. And the people were without number that came with him out of Egypt, the Lubims, the Sukkims, and the Ethiopians. And he took the fenced cities which pertained to Judah, and came to Jerusalem. Then came Shemaiah the prophet to Rehoboam, and to the princes of Judah that were gathered together to Jerusalem because of Shishak, and said unto them, Thus saith the Lord, Ye have forsaken me, and therefore have I left you in the hand of Shishak. Whereupon the princes of Israel and the king humbled themselves, and they said, The Lord is righteous. And when the Lord saw that they humbled themselves, the word of the Lord came to Shemaiah, saying, They have humbled themselves, therefore I will not destroy them, but I will grant them some deliverance, and my wrath shall not be poured out upon Jerusalem by the hand of Shishak. Nevertheless, they shall be his servants, that they may know my service and the service of the kingdoms of the countries. So Shishak, king of Egypt, came up against Jerusalem, and took away the treasures of the house of the Lord, and the treasures of the king's house. He took all. He carried away also the shields of gold which Solomon had made, instead of which King Rehoboam made shields of brass, and committed them to the hands of the chief of the guard that kept the entrance of the king's house. And when the king entered into the house of the Lord, the guard came and fetched them, and brought them again into the guard chamber. And when he humbled himself, the wrath of the Lord turned from him, that he would not destroy him altogether. And also in Judah things went well. So King Rehoboam strengthened himself in Jerusalem and reigned. For Rehoboam was 41 years old when he began to reign. And he reigned 17 years in Jerusalem, the city which the Lord had chosen out of all the tribes of Israel, to put his name there. And his mother's name was Naamah, an Ammonitess. And he did evil, because he prepared not his heart to seek the Lord. Now the acts of Rehoboam, first and last, are they not written in the book of Shemaiah the prophet, and of Iddo the seer, concerning genealogies? And there were wars between Rehoboam and Jeroboam continually. And Rehoboam slept with his fathers, and was buried in the city of David, and Abijah, his son, reigned in his stead. Okay, so there was a lot here, sermon upon sermon again. But listen to this as well. Verse 5, Then came Shemaiah the prophet to Rehoboam and to the princes of Judah that were gathered together to Jerusalem because of Shishak, and said unto them, Thus saith the Lord, Ye have forsaken me, and therefore have I also left you in the hand of Shishak. Whereupon the princes of Israel and the king humbled themselves, and they said, The Lord is righteous. So yeah, at this time they had started to move away from the full worship of the Lord. They were starting already to act, and that was already seen in Rehoboam, how instead of listening to the elders, instead of listening to the people who were under the service of his father Solomon, who were known to worship the Lord in a correct manner, he listened to the people who were not only manipulative, but were also very, very, very not even someone who you would want to, because they didn't know. They didn't know only what they saw and only what they felt and only what they lived. So they were very ignorant as to what it meant to be a king at this time. And so when they heard Shemaiah the prophet come and tell them, hey, ye have forsaken me, and therefore have I also left you in the hand of Shishak. This was also happening. There were devastation's already starting, and that was Shishak came in, took some of those towns, and then was able to still come into a war against Jerusalem and take the gold shields, but it was not destroyed because Rehoboam humbled himself, and who the princes of Israel, which was the leaders of the tribes and or the groups of people that were in Judah at this time, humbled themselves before the Lord, and so these things didn't span out. They didn't go to a catastrophic end. That was taken note, and so he was able to go to the Lord in humbleness, asked for that forgiveness, and the Lord helped, again, by not being completely annihilated or destroyed, but he already told them that they would be a little bit in servitude, and that's why those gold shields were taken. And, of course, but it also tells us in verse 14, and he did evil because he prepared not his heart to seek the Lord. So he continually, he knew from his father, he knew from the prophets, and in this case, Shemaiah, who was telling him, seek the Lord first. You are the king over God's people. And instead of righting himself, he was living chaotically. He was living what he thought, what his thoughts and feelings were, mixing religions, mixing practices, not listening to wise decisions, and or not even seeking the Lord until it's too late or things are in devastation or bad things are happening. Bringing past to present. Sound familiar again? With the conflicts, with the whole listening to what the Lord has to say to help correct ourselves, so that way we're ready, that our heart is prepared and ready, because we don't want a heart of stone. When we get into our own thoughts and feelings and then start preparing our own righteousness through our own actions, we start developing a heart of stone, because it starts becoming more about us. It starts becoming more selfish. It starts becoming more conceited. So much so that things could happen and you could just be completely either bad things are happening. You could be complicit, which means that you could care less what's going on with your surroundings, or it could be the opposite of what the fruits of the Spirit is. And you could be seeking those things and wanting to see and hear those things which are wicked and not correct and are evil. And those can affect you in life. So when we seek the Lord and we live in the Spirit, it corrects our heart, therefore correcting our path and making sure that we are following a path that is close to Him, so that way these chaotic times aren't devastating to us. These things that are out of control are not hitting us in between the armor and the shield that we have from the Lord. Think about these things in your life and think about the different ways it affects you, because I know we've talked about relationships as well recently, and that can be things within your relationship, especially when if you have a heart of stone, or if you're not correcting the chaos that's within inside, then that can reflect out and create more issues, and you may not even realize that you too are part of the problems within your own relationship. Before we go on, though, what kind of thoughts or feelings come to your mind when we read over this? How does it make you feel? What does it make you think?